Good evening. Hope that light's not too bad. Maybe I should turn it off. It's a bit much. Anyway, thank you for joining me for another Wednesday evening service. Begin with the verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Three bows. The fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. The fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Three Treasures reading. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve that I shall each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha. In the spirit of universal fellowship and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. Metta prayers. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. Okay. So a little guided meditation. So I'm going to guide this, and if you're doing the right thing, you're not going to notice this because you could have your eyes closed. But I'm going to get up and move around a little bit during the meditation because my tablet was acting up when I was trying to get it lined up, so I can't monitor the meeting. So I'm going to be messing with my tablet. So you're going to meditate though. Ready? Just take several deep breaths. As always, let your belly be nice and soft. Make sure you're not holding any tension in your abdominals so your diaphragm can do its job, filling your lungs, emptying them completely. And then let your breath just settle into a comfortable rhythm. You don't have to do anything special, but breathing in, be aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, aware that you're breathing out. And we're going to do the guardian meditations, and then we'll meditate on the breath. So the first guardian is recollection of the teacher. So whatever you consider your highest teacher to be, can be the Buddha, if you're a Buddhist, if you're not a Buddhist, whatever represents your highest meaning and purpose. So if you're recollecting the Buddha, think about the virtues of wisdom, compassion, purity. So that's our intention for this meditation this evening, is to awaken to whatever our highest meaning and purpose is. And then the second guardian is metta, loving kindness, goodwill. So begin with goodwill for yourself. May I be happy. Remember, this really means to be happy right now. Opening up to that happiness that's found in the present moment that comes from within. May I be free from animosity. Letting go of any feelings of anger or ill will, anything like that that arises in your heart. May I be free from stress and affliction. So anything that comes into awareness, there's no need to cling to anything or push anything away. No need to engage in a way that creates stress. Just letting go, letting be. And then sharing that wish for happiness with all beings. May all beings be happy. And send that in all directions, above and below. The third guardian is mindfulness of the body. So this is what we have, this form, this life. Follow the teachings to develop true happiness for ourselves, to help others become happy. And so just scan the body briefly from head to toe, feeling the breath in the body. The body's not the self. The body's a process. And just be aware of that process. And the final guardian is mindfulness of the preciousness of this moment. We started out by recalling the teacher and our desire to awaken to those teachings. And this is the moment that we know we have for this. Time swiftly passes by, opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to awaken. So let's go back to the breath. It's really one of the most universal gateways to awakening is through meditation on the breath. The relationship between the breath and the body and the mind gives us a lot of information. The breath is always with us. It doesn't belong to any particular school of Buddhism or even just Buddhism. Everyone breathes. So focus on each and every single breath. And if you need to anchor your attention on the breath, you can count. Breathe in, breathe out 1. Elongating the out breath has a calming effect. And if you extend that counting for the whole out breath, that focuses your mind more on the breathing, also calms the mind and the body. And you can count up to 10 and then start over. Or you can just note the out breaths. Breathe in and out. Go, go, go. If you miss a breath, you can't breathe it again. You can only breathe a breath one time. So try to be very aware of each breath. The in-breath begins, it continues. There's a feeling of fullness. The out-breath begins, it continues. There's a feeling of emptiness. Then string your breaths together like beads on a mala. The end of one breath is the beginning of the next. You know what a mala is. That's a necklace of beads. One continuous circle, all together, each bead separate and yet all connected. A bead can't be where it is without the one before it and the one after it. And in turn, they're connected to the ones before and after them. So to connect your breaths to each other. The bell will ring twice to end the meditation. Rings the first time, take a deep breath. You're aware of yourself and your surroundings. And when it rings the second time, bring your hands together in front of your heart and just bow. Okay. Well, I hope the streaming is going okay. Let me know if it doesn't. I mean, there's not anything I can do about it now. I know we're having some internet issues. It's been sort of in and out. Um, and that's probably why I was having trouble with the tablet, but also it's old and slow, like me. And there's too much junk on it, like me. So it doesn't always do what it's supposed to do. But anyway, um, hopefully you're hopefully everything is going okay on your end. So before I go into the Dharma talk, I want to talk briefly, very briefly, about finances. So I'm okay. Okay, I'm not going to ask you for money. Um, in, not that I don't appreciate it or that I don't need it. We have expenses too and all of that, but I'm doing all right. If you've been thinking about kind of making a donation to me in the next week or two, I'd rather you make it to White Sands Buddhist Center, or if you're used to hearing the Dharma at one of the Unitarian congregations or something like that, I'd rather you give it to them this time. I've heard from White Sands, they're not bringing in any money at all from the gift shop, which is where it covers a significant amount of their overhead. And they've got these nuns there, and the nuns are there. They serve a purpose. They're not just there freeloading, right? They take care of the grounds, help take care of the grounds, which is significant. But also, we had a member of the community pass away recently, and so, they do services every 7 days. If you ever pass away, the Pure Land Buddhist service involves chanting for you once a week for 7 weeks. And so they do that, and there's a lot of other things like that they do to support people and stuff. And they have to eat. So anyway, if you've been thinking about making a donation to me, don't do it this time. Do it for White Sands or for UU West Volusia or UU Putnam or wherever it is that you've been getting the Dharma. Please support them, because even though we're not showing up there, they still have overhead expenses. So anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about that. So you might have noticed this sitting on my altar at some point. So I got this idea from Ajahn Chah, who was a Thai meditation master who taught a lot of Westerners went to him to learn how to meditate and stuff. And so he used to keep a jar like this on his altar. And then when he would talk, he would shake it up like this, right? So you notice before the water was clear. Now the water is cloudy, right? Because it's got a bunch of sand and rocks and various other stuff in it. Oh, okay. And so as long as you keep shaking the water up, I haven't done this in a while, so all of the sandy stuff is pretty much stuck to the bottom. As long as you keep it stimulated, it stays cloudy, right? But, and it's kind of like our mind, there's all this crap floating around in there. As long as we keep stirring it up, the mind stays cloudy. There's all these worries and frustrations and angers and all of these things that get stirred up as we go through life. And as long as we keep agitating it, we're going to have all this stuff floating around, clouding our awareness. But then you set the bottle of water down and let it rest, and all those particles begin to settle. See, it's already starting to clear a little bit. If we leave it there long enough, the water becomes completely clear. We can see right through it. And likewise, if we set our minds firmly on a good foundation, then all those mental chunks and dust and all of that will settle too. And then we can see more clearly into our hearts and what's really going on with us. So when we meditate, that's basically what we're doing. We let that mental dust settle. And in the process, the clarity of mind can emerge, and we can see more clearly into our experience of the present moment. So, this past Saturday was the 4th of July. And of course, there's always a lot of talk about the idea of independence. And so I was thinking about that. I think it's important to be aware that if our minds are not free, then things like freedom of body and freedom of speech don't really have a whole lot of value. So I was thinking about that this week, and this old disco song kept popping into my head, "Free your mind and the rest will follow." So I thought I would talk a little bit today about how to free your mind and what that means. So a lot of Americans get interested in Buddhism because they want to learn how to meditate. And then they come to meetings like this one and they find out that that they don't like to sit still for long periods of time. And so we develop this kind of love-hate relationship with meditation. And there's two questions that I get fairly often from people who are curious about what we do at meetings. And the first one is, do I have to be a Buddhist if I want to learn how to meditate? And no, you don't. You can learn how to meditate without being a Buddhist. And the second one is, if I want to be a Buddhist, do I have to meditate? And the answer to that is also no. So most Americans who come to Buddhism, they expect to meditate, but most cultural Buddhists, people who grew up in Buddhist cultures, a lot of them don't meditate at all, or at least not very often. Places like White Sands Buddhist Center probably overall are the exception, not the rule. In a lot of traditions, meditation is something that monks do, and even that's not 100% the case. So, and a lot of Asian Buddhist teachers have been surprised, really, by the interest that Americans show in meditation. I read something once about a Japanese Zen master who visited a monastery that had been established in the U.S. This was probably in the 70s or 80s. And there was this room full of monks there all meditating. He was very impressed. He said, "How do you get them to meditate? I can't get my monks to sit still unless I threaten to hit them." So the Buddha did practice many forms of meditation, and he taught it. And meditation ultimately led to his enlightenment. And you see a lot of stories about monks who meditated and became awakened. He encouraged his followers to meditate. And so, but I thought it would be useful to talk about what Buddhists mean when we talk about meditation, and look at where it fits in with the rest of the path. I've had people say, "Oh, I thought Buddhists just meditated. I thought that was it. That was the religion." And that's not it at all. That's part of it. So to understand Buddhist meditation, you kind of have to put it into context. So probably if you're watching this, you've heard of the Four Noble Truths. Truth of stress, the origination of stress, the cessation of stress, and the Eightfold Path leading to the cessation of stress. So the Eightfold Path is really a comprehensive practice. It's a little easier to grasp that if we look at it as kind of a group of three trainings. And you'll hear this referred to in Southeast Asia sometimes, talking about the triple training, the Tricycle. There's a magazine called Tricycle. I'm assuming that they got that from this word Tricycle, which means three trainings. It's made up of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, or Pranya, if you're using Sanskrit. And those are usually translated as morality or ethics, meditation, and the development of wisdom. So Sila refers to the part of the path that has to do with living compassionately. We're careful that our speech, actions, and livelihood are helpful to others and don't harm them. And then Panya has to do with wisdom. So this part of the path is involved with understanding the nature of reality and aligning our intentions with that understanding. And then meditation falls under the heading of Samadhi, which Samadhi is the eighth factor of the Eightfold Path, but it's also used kind of more generally to refer to the way we train the mind. So it includes three factors from the Eightfold Path, really: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So the word samadhi, by the way, has different meanings when we talk about meditation. There's samadhi, which means concentrating on your meditation object. And there's samadhi in kind of the larger sense, which means kind of setting your mind on your goal. And so in this case, when we're talking about it in the context of the path, we mean really setting our intention on our spiritual goals. So this is one of the reasons I decided to talk about this is I've been, talking a little bit about the guardian meditations. And really the beginning of those is all about determining this sort of creating this intention for spiritual goals. So what is the teacher? Why am I doing this? It's not just because I'm stressed out and I want to figure out a good relaxation technique. It's really, where do I want to go with this? What's the highest level that I want to attain? And so, for me, that's Buddha. For you, that might be something else. But this is really kind of taking us to that level of setting our intention on what our spiritual goal is. So when people talk about meditation, and generally they include a lot of different things. I'm a moderator in a Zen meditation group, and how that happened is a long story, but I was in the group and there was a lot of junk going on. Nobody was moderating it, so I volunteered. That was a long time ago. And people come in and post about all kinds of stuff about meditation, guided relaxations and affirmations in your sleep and relaxing music and all these things. So Buddhist meditation can involve a lot of different practices, but in one way or another, Buddhist practices all relate back specifically to those three factors of the Eightfold Path: right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And so different ways of meditation emphasize one of those three factors, but the three are closely related and they come into play with each other in one degree or another. So I'm going to take them one by one, and then we'll kind of see how they work together. So right effort means that if a harmful mental state arises, you make an effort to abandon it, and you make an effort to prevent its arising again. So, for example, if you were meditating and anger comes up or anxiety, you let that go. And then you try not to keep thinking about whatever it is that arose along with that. So you might be meditating and thinking about something that somebody said to you in a Zoom meeting yesterday at work, and how disrespectful it seemed. So in order to keep and so you get angry. So in order to keep from getting angry again, you don't keep thinking about this. When the thought comes up, you let it go, so you don't get angry all over again. Stuff like that. Right effort also means that you cultivate helpful mental states. So the second guardian we did was metta, was goodwill, right? Metta bhava, cultivating goodwill. So if you lack that, or you lack compassion or whatever, then you work on getting it to arise, and then you maintain it. You keep that in place. So from the standpoint of right effort, meditation practice is kind of a two-part process. We're letting go and we're cultivating. We're letting go of things that hinder our spiritual progress to make room for things that get our spiritual lives to grow and deepen, so we get closer to what that highest intention is. So I tell you this story. One day when I was at the prison, Tomoka Correctional Institution, this chapel clerk came over to say goodbye to me. He was being released, and he wanted to tell me that he had learned from us. So being a chapel clerk, they kind of monitor the room and all that kind of thing. And so he wasn't really part of the group, but he was sitting in our meetings a lot. And he said something that I found really interesting. He said he compared his mind to a garden. And he said, I learned from listening to you that I have to be careful what I do in my garden, because what I plant and take care of, that's what's going to grow. So meditation is like that. As we go through life, we're planting seeds. When we do good actions of body, speech, or mind, we're planting good seeds. When we do bad actions of body, speech, and mind, we're planting bad seeds. And so it's like planting fruits and vegetables versus weeding. You want to plant more fruits and vegetables, and you want to avoid letting the weeds germinate. And then you want to nurture the things that you want to have ripen, and uproot quickly the things that you don't want in your garden. So, for example, attachment to your ego is a great big old weed. You're not going to have much luck making spiritual progress if you're clinging to your ego. Yeah, so you have to make room in your garden. You have to weed out some ego attachment first. And that's partly why the Buddha didn't usually start out by teaching advanced meditation practices to people. He would teach them first about things like the virtues of generosity and ethical restraint, being charitable, being generous with others, and then restraining what we do so that we don't cause harm. You have a very hard time letting go of your attachments to your ego if you can't first learn how to share what you have. And you have a hard time focusing your mind on your spiritual goals if you can't restrain your actions to prevent harming others. So to accomplish this weeding and cultivation, you need mindfulness and concentration, the seventh and eighth factor of the Eightfold Path. So right mindfulness means being aware of what's happening now and remembering what your purpose is. It's not just being in the present moment. It's being in the present moment and knowing what's going on and whether what you're doing is leading to harm or not. So when anger and anxiety and things like that arise, you watch that happen, you stay with the experience as it occurs. You don't mentally run off to yesterday to relive this thing that the person said to you on the Zoom meeting or whatever. You don't run off into tomorrow when some horrible thing you think might happen. You observe that the mental state is present. You observe what happens to it when you stay in the here and now. Right concentration means keeping your mind resting on a suitable object. See, look how this is clearing already. I don't know if you can see that. You can sort of see it. Keeping your mind resting on a nice stable object. And there's plenty of those objects. The breath is the one that we happen to work with. And the breath is like that table. If you rest your cloudy mind there, as it becomes calm, your awareness becomes more clear. So you see how these three things work together. We start with concentration usually. The mind becomes calmer, and as it calms, it's easier to stay in the moment. It's easier to be aware of mental phenomena that come and go. And that enhanced awareness can lead to insight. And as insight develops, hindrances like attachment and anger and aversion, restlessness, worry, listlessness, and doubt begin to lose their hold on us. We recognize them as what they are, and so we don't let them hook us. And at the meantime, things like compassion and kindness and serenity deepen. So sometimes somebody will tell me that they meditate, and I'll say, well, what do you do? And they say, oh, well, I just sit down and I let my mind go all over the place. That might have some value depending on where your mind likes to go, but that's not really meditation as we mean it. We use this quiet time to train our mind to go where we want it to go. And so different traditions teach different ways to do that, but they all have these elements of training the mind in right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So most Buddhist meditation traditions have some sort of meditation that stresses concentration. Zen more or less fits into that because it focuses on entering states of samadhi. The word Zen actually derives from a Pali word, jhana. The Sanskrit form of that is jhana. It means meditative absorption. And so the Theravada Buddhist equivalent of this is samatha meditation, which means tranquility. As you rest the mind on one stable object of meditation, the mind becomes calmer and clearer and more tranquil. There's a couple of different approaches to meditation that use the term vipassana, which means seeing clearly. Vipassana practitioners don't necessarily go deeply into jhana, somewhat, but not real deeply, but they calm the mind enough to follow the flow of mental experience with more of a mindfulness practice. So in traditional Theravada Buddhism, Vipassana practice might also include things like meditating on the parts of the body and that kind of stuff. None of these practices involve floating in the clouds above a field of daisies to a happy place or anything like that, or listening to relaxing music or zoning out. There may be nothing wrong with those things. If they're useful to you, keep doing them. But that's not really what we're doing. These practices are actually pretty hard work, and there's a reason for that. We're freeing the mind by training the mind. So rather than just relaxing, we teach the mind to stop imprisoning us with our clinging, our ego attachments, and so on. So we don't just stop worrying by distracting ourselves from our worry, for example. We look a little deeper into our worry and uproot it at the source. I got a call one week from a guy who's kind of one town over from where I live, and he wanted to learn how to meditate. And he wanted to hire me to come over and tell him how to build a meditation garden so that he could meditate. And I said, well, if you want to design a garden, you need to call a landscape architect. That is not what I do. But I said, if you want a meditation garden, you have to build it in your mind. You have to prepare your mental soil, and you have to make space for new growth. You didn't understand what I was talking about, but it was okay. In fact, I never heard from him again. Hopefully, he found a way to either build a garden or learn how to meditate. But during this service a little earlier, I offered incense. And that's a great way for us to remind ourselves that letting go has a greater reward than clinging. And we also reminded ourselves that Buddha is our refuge and we vow to live compassionately and things like that. So these help break up the hard soil in our hearts so that the seeds we want to plant can put down roots. And it clears away some obstructions so that the light from the teachings can reach the leaves, and our Dharma plants will have room to spread. And that's really as far as I'm going to go with that metaphor. But a lot of times people decide to start meditating. And they'll go on a long retreat and they'll learn how to meditate, and they'll meditate for a couple hours a day or whatever. And then they get frustrated because they won't have time and they end up quitting. So, if you wanted to do some gardening, you don't have to go out and buy a farm. You can fill a couple of paint buckets with soil and grow some tomatoes out on your patio. In the same way, if you want to meditate, set aside a little time each day. 5 or 10 minutes twice a day will get you a pretty good result if you use it well. 5 or 10 minutes once a day will get you something. It's not a matter of how much you do. It's a matter of how much attention you give it. And so then you use that to sow the seeds of concentration and mindfulness, compassion, serenity, and you let those grow. And when a weed like anger or hatred sprouts, pull it out. If a plant begins to wilt because of doubt or listlessness, you energize your practice with more effort. And if you tend your garden carefully, mindfully, you will see wisdom blossom and its fruits ripen. So I hope that this clarified for you kind of where meditation fits in with the practice. And I'm going to look and see if any of you have asked me any questions. If you thought of one and you haven't asked it yet, this is the time to type that in. I don't see questions, although it's interesting. Loud, rapid clicking noises. I wonder what that is. I was in a Zoom meeting or something once, not too long ago, and somebody said that there was a clicking noise. I don't know what that is. Huh?
Somebody typing.
Yeah, but nobody's typing. You weren't typing. I wasn't typing. I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad that it generally worked fairly well for you. Sorry about the weird noises. Try to figure out what that is. I don't see any questions, so sounds like a baseball card and a bike tire. So strange. Or fan. So there's my fan's not on in here. There's a fan in the other room, but it's on the basically on the other side of the house. The air conditioner. It doesn't make a clicking noise. It's just kind of a. Does it always do that? Do you always hear that? Well, that's weird. Well, I'll have to experiment, see if I can figure out the source and get rid of it. I would think maybe it was something that the computer was doing, but the webcam and the microphone is actually about 6 feet from the computer. And no, it doesn't always do it. Huh. Well, maybe it's just one of those weird things today that has something to do with all of the other slowness with the screen, getting online and everything. Anyway, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you spending your Wednesday evening with me. Cabbage Patch on Saturday night during bike week. Well, we do have loud vehicles that go by my house sometimes. I'm surprised that I'm surprised you're able to hear them that clearly. I might have to experiment a little bit. I guess we're going to keep live streaming for some time. So I'll experiment with doing something a little bit better for with the sound in here. There's probably a way to, I can use a different microphone and use one that I wear or something. Anyway, we'll play with that. So again, thank you for being here. And I was just looking to see what somebody posted something, make sure it wasn't a question. Feel free to join me tomorrow, Thursday, on Zoom. If you don't have the address or the Zoom link, email me and I'll send it to you. And I'll be here Sunday morning. So I hope your week goes well, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Dedication. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now, and offering flowers, candles, and incense, hearing the Dharma and training the mind. Great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Sakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, to the 16 guardians and all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of this Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of ignorance. Let all karma be resolved in the mind, flower bloom, and eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. May their vows be fully realized. May they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for those suffering from violence and those who grieve for them, for those living in oppression, for all who are in prison who should be free, and for all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophe, man-made or natural. We pray for the health and well-being of all those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, all those working toward the healing of those afflictions. We pray for those suffering from COVID-19, those working to protect and treat them, and to those grieving for those lost to this pandemic. At this time, we have members of our congregations, friends and loved ones suffering from diseases or grieving for lost loved ones. We pray for them, send loving thoughts their way. May they all be serene through their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukha jivino katam punya phalang mahan sabe bhagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. And we bow to each other. Thank you, and I'll see you later.